everybody. I'm Hillary Atkin from the Atkin Report, and I am delighted to welcome Ben Foster, executive producer and star of the feature film The Survivor, to this edition of Hillary's Happy Hour. Ben, how are you doing?
Doing very well, Hillary. How are you today?
Excellent, thank you.
Glad to hear
Ben,
it.
how did you come to the story of Harry Haft, the real life story of a man who at Auschwitz was forced to fight his fellow inmates for the amusement and enrichment of their Nazi captors?
It's a story I'd never heard before. Barry Levinson sent me the script, which was it's a strange joy because on one hand, getting to hear from Barry after 20 years, he gave me my first film role at Liberty Heights 20 years ago. And to be called up again by him was really touching. Upon reading the material, it's challenging to say the least. The scope of the story is immense, and the questions are morally ambiguous, which is always very attractive and appealing to me to be able to explore.
Well, you have said you wanted to totally inhabit the character of Harry Haft in 3 decades of his life without any special effects. So talk to us about achieving the transformation of a man who was driven by love and went from unspeakable horror to freedom, and in later years confronting his past.
It was a mighty mountain. It is a mighty mountain. You begin with asking questions. You don't go into a film saying, this is how I do it. I know exactly who this character is. You go in asking questions and surrounding yourself with people who are authorities and know a lot more than I do. So it begins with reading. It begins with looking at photos and speaking with Yiddish experts. And by returning to pictures of the Holocaust, by reviewing the footage of the liberators, it became starkly apparent that the film was going to only succeed if we found that Harry, when he was in the camps, who had dropped an enormous amount of weight, that we believed that. And for myself as an actor, I was offered digital effects, could shrink me down and build me up and make me young, make me old. And I just said, well, if that's how we're going to do it, you got the wrong actor. You know, I need this for me to have the choice. And I'm asked, like, well, was it hard? And I think this is a major theme, Hillary, in the film, which is choice is a luxury. We forget that often. The choice is a luxury. So I was able to choose to lose the weight in order to build back up. So I lost 62 pounds for the camps. We took 5 weeks off, and I gained 50 pounds to be in fighting form for the ring, and then just ate to my heart's content, which was glorious, pasta and vodka. Though a volatile period in Harry's life, it was, I do say, if I had the choice between going hungry and eating and drinking, I'd lean towards the food side.
Well, I could ask you, aside from pasta and vodka, what was your favorite thing to bring your weight back up?
Well, there are 2 sections, right? So by losing the 62 pounds, once it was time to start eating again, everything tasted exquisite. But I'm a pretty simple person. I mean, at least in appetite, burgers and fries. It's hard to beat In-N-Out in Los Angeles if you're there, and gosh, everything tasted good. But the fighting element had to be. It was 50 pounds of muscle. So, I mean, I'm fighting Rocky Marciano. There are no stunt doubles in the film. The punches are full contact. We wanted to make this film feel as authentic as possible. And then after that, it was just chocolate sundaes and, yeah.
Well, Ben, speaking of authentic, it doesn't get any more real than traveling to Auschwitz with some of your film crew and breathing in the air of that death camp and the gas chambers. Talk to us about the impact that had on you and how that has affected you, please.
Well, Hillary, you and I spoke previously about this, and you yourself went to Auschwitz, and it's something that you can't unsee. It's altering. It's one thing to see the photographs, look at the footage, hear about it, and it's another to touch the rails in which 6 million Jews arrived upon for their extermination. It's another thing to see the piles of luggage, the discarded toothbrushes, the mountains of baby shoes. It changes you, and you leave smelling that air, feeling that land, and not to be, it's hard to even, you can't, there's a quote about poetry died the day of the Holocaust, but I'd say I didn't hear a bird. It was as though the birds had not returned to that place. Your eyes change. There's something that happens. It's indescribable, and I'd say it is not for the worse. It has tenderized my heart, and I hope to bring my children there someday.
Yeah, I do too. On a bit of a different note,
Yeah.
You and Barry Levinson were able to screen the film for the day it premiered, Yom HaShoah, at the White House for President and Mrs. Biden. So tell us about what that experience was like for you.
Hillary, it's not something I ever expected to be at the White House sharing a film, and a few things came to mind. One was that it was the first film. The Survivor is the first film to be screened at the White House under the Biden administration. So that invitation was deeply felt. But it also recalled of my Nana, who escaped persecution in Romania. My grandfather family escaped the Ukraine. It recalled a story that my Nana shared with us, and she escaped the pogroms and was in hiding. And her family traveled in steerage on a boat and arrived in America. And she told the story of looking out a port window at 8 years old and seeing the Statue of Liberty on Thanksgiving Day. And in Yiddish said, "That's my lady." And for the rest of her days, she had little statues of the Statue of Liberty in her apartment. And I can't tell you what it meant to be in the White House thinking about that little girl sharing that film in the White House. It's quite, made me quite emotional.
Then you shared a lot of the journey of your family in a coming over, escaping persecution in Europe, as is the story of millions of Jews throughout history, in a column in Variety. I'm wondering what has been the response, because so many people share that experience. And even now with the war in Ukraine, it's never ending. But what has been the response that you've gotten, and how did you feel being able to express that story of your own family?
Well, the opportunity to film The Survivor is a film about, in many ways, facing the horrors of the past, surviving, and then confronting a new life. It's not like you can just turn your old life off. It's one has to reflect upon it, and that allowed me the opportunity to reflect on my own family. And I'd say the response of it is much to do with what I feel the film The Survivor is about. It's not a Holocaust film. It's not a boxing film. It's about the immigrant experience of those that have escaped war and were looking for safe harbor in America. And that's as relevant today as it was then.
I totally agree with you, Ben. And to me, the message of the film is being able to overcome adversity and keeping hope alive. And I think that is a wonderful way to wrap up our happy hour. I would love to raise a glass to you, Ben, and to your continued success with The Survivor and all that it brings.
Well, cheers to you, Hillary, and thank you for sharing time with me.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.